Good morning, America. How you doing? And hello to all our fellow veterans out there, our brothers and sisters, and our co-host Kevin. How you doing today, Kevin?
Great. How are you this afternoon, Tim?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. All those medical tests and MRIs and MRAs. Got to get another MRA next week. Ah, takes its toll, but I'm still here.
Well, that's a good thing.
And yep, the kind of get you down a bit when you have to go through all those testing. But hey, hopefully one day they'll figure out if they're going to cut that thing out of my head or not. So we'll go from there. Um, I hear you got some news for Michigan veterans.
Yeah. The Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency is putting on a gala on the for veterans networks and supporters of those veterans who are dancing on the 5th of November at 6 p.m. So it's going to be an exciting for us all to gather together with veterans and supporters and push forward a fight and socialize and have a good time.
All right, now if somebody wants to attend, is there some place they can go to purchase tickets?
QR code on the gala. You can look at Michigan Veterans Affairs Association, and you can also you can request anything through me or the website. I'll send you the QR code and put
Yeah,
up
we'll start
tickets.
Yeah, we'll start putting that up there here, and also all you Ohio veterans, there is a ruck march coming up on October 15th in Chillicothe, Ohio at 9 a.m. To register for the Ruck March, you do have to go to Eventbrite, and it's called First Capital Ruck 22. Next week I'll have a thing up so you have some information on how to get to Eventbrite. But I believe it's $22 registration, and all the proceeds definitely goes to veterans charities. And another event that I'm proud of is it's called Haircuts for Warriors in Rootstown, Texas. So if you're in the Rootstown area in Texas, Burn Pits 360, Rosie and Leroy Torres down there, they get haircuts for veterans. I believe there is a little donation of a canned item or something of that sort. Go to burnpits360.org for more information. They also have a ruck march coming up. I believe it's in the San Antonio area, but it's in that area down there near Rootstown, San Antonio. That's coming up here very soon as well. If you're interested in participating in that ruck march, go to burnpits360.org to get more information. And I am very, very excited about today's show. And I know you are too, Kevin.
I am, and it's Red Friday, remembering everybody deployed, and through that sometimes a lot of pain and sometimes a lot of injuries occur, and I'm so excited to have her on. She's a wonderful person, a wonderful. Uh, she's helped so many veterans along the way, try to heal. And Tim, I'll let you introduce our guest.
All right. Before I do that, folks, this is one badass woman right here. Man, I tell you what. Talk about somebody who's going to be able to inspire you. This woman's going to do it. Veterans, this is definitely somebody you want to get to know, read about, find out what her family has not only done for veterans, because there's a long history with this family with helping veterans out. And then what this woman does for other veterans and what is planned for the future, it's just amazing. So please welcome to the show, Miss Micaela Bensko. from Veterans
Hello.
in Pain.
Yay.
Hello, everybody.
Round of applause.
Good to see
Round of
you.
applause.
Now, before we get
That was
into
nice.
before we get into Veterans in Pain, there's also another organization that your family is involved with.
Yes. Oh,
Would
yeah.
you mind speaking about that for a bit?
Yeah. I may speak a little longer than you'd like.
That's fine.
But my mother is Maggie Lockridge, and she founded an organization. Oh, my whole family's veterans, back to like the Revolutionary War. We've done the lineage. It's kind of freaky. My mom was an RN in the Air Force, and she had started a business in Beverly Hills 20, 30 years ago. And it was a plastic surgery recuperation facility for movie stars, and kings and queens and all that. So they'd go to her facility. And after 20 years and 18,000 patient nights, she retired, and she was watching a Bob Woodruff special and on TV, and she noticed how so many of the veterans, when they were returning home, they were getting mechanically functional, but the aesthetics still weren't quite being addressed. And so she had this roster of plastic surgeons out here in LA, and she thought, well, I'm not ready to retire, even though I did. And so she started Rebuilding America's Warriors, and that provides free reconstructive surgery for troops 9/11 forward, combat wounded. And I came on board, I was 2006, 2007 as VP, vice president of that. And we ended up building a national network of volunteer physicians, about 450 surgeons in all 50 states. And over this period of time, I think we facilitated over 1,000 procedures for vets. And so it's completely pro bono.
Man, that's awesome.
For the she's amazing. My mom's amazing. So, and then in 2011, the tables they flipped. And I was in my driveway unloading groceries from the back of my car. And I pushed the button for the electric tailgate to come down after I picked up my last bag. And as I stood up, the corner of the back hatch lodged in my temple and inverted my cervical spine. And I already had a fragile lower spine from a car accident in college, and that blew out. And long story short, ended up with over 20 spine surgeries and procedures, a pain pump implant, spinal stimulators north and south, in a wheelchair 8.5 years, in bed 6 years, 90% of the time. Because of all the treatments I received, I developed one of the most painful chronic pain diseases. And chronic pain is a disease, by the way, and it comes in different factions. But this was arachnoiditis, and arachnoiditis is one of the most common yet underdiagnosed conditions, especially in the veteran community, which I found out later. And just one puncture to the dura of your spinal cord can cause arachnoiditis. Even a mom going in to have a baby for the first time and has an epidural, within a couple of weeks that you can lose the use of your legs. And for me, it manifested itself with literally, I have 4 kids, so I know what it feels like, labor contractions within the spinal cord every 10 to 15 minutes if you put any pressure on your tailbone at all. And so they call it the suicide disease. And on the McGill pain scale of 1 to 10, it's technically designated at 1,000. So, and that's by the McGill pain scale. That and CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome of the spine. So I had 2 whammies, and both of these are the most painful diseases for chronic pain. And I was told there's no hope. They call it the suicide disease, both of them, for a reason, because within 10 to 15 years, on average, the patient ends up taking themselves out. So I have an amazing husband, 4 incredible kids. And my husband's a best. I still get butterflies when he walks in the door. So, but even then, you reach a place that is so dark, and you realize it's your physical capacity to keep living in that type of pain. And then a friend of mine that I had reconnected with, because she was also diagnosed with arachnoiditis, and she said, listen, I found this doctor out of Scottsdale. This is back in 2017, before the FDA crackdown and everything. And she said, he does this procedure with stem cells. And I'm like, that's snake oil. I mean, you can't even fathom that something so simple could touch this, what you're going through. And I said, how much is it? She goes, $24,000.
Mm-hmm.
You go, I'll watch. Even in the state I was in, I'm like, you go first. And I was helping her pick out her wheelchair before she left. And within 48 hours, she could move the toes in her left foot that she hadn't moved in 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And within 6 weeks, she was walking her son to school. So I'm in. A family friend donated the funds for me to be able to receive the procedure. And by the very next day, less than 24 hours, my spinal contraction stopped. Gone. Haven't had one since. That was June 28th of 2017. So then I'm thinking, I know how to do this now because my mom. If I hadn't been working with my mom on Rebuilding America's Warriors, then I wouldn't have a clue where to begin. But so what had happened is, during my period of time of going through all of this, there was a small group of veterans from our RAW program, RAW, and they were there for me. And we started discussing their own experiences with chronic pain and what was lacking through the VA system. And we work with the VA system. We have VAs that refer patients to us, veterans to us, all the time. So we work with VAs, but it's also became a blinding understanding and awareness, I should say, of what did not exist within the VA for chronic pain, due mostly to just a lack of understanding that it is a systemic autoimmune disease of the central nervous system. And so in order to address that, for pain in the VA, the way that they diagnose chronic pain is through your mobility. They correlate mobility with the level of chronic pain you're experiencing. And there's zero correlation, by the way. I mean, yeah, it may hurt when you move a limb that has pain in it, but it has nothing to do with the grading or disability rating for chronic pain. And then on top of that, obtaining the proper type of imaging is, in order to address chronic pain properly, you need soft tissue imaging. 90% of pain is inflammation. Inflammation is caused because the body feels it's been attacked in some way, when you bruise yourself or whatever, or surgery or what have you. It causes inflammation, and 90% of pain is inflammation. Inflammation occurs within soft tissue. If soft tissue isn't being addressed, or we're not addressing pain systemically in some way, or with a multidisciplinary program, meaning, right now, PM&R within the VA is mostly prescriptive, right? Yes. And then the CDC crackdown has resulted in such a restriction of the one tool that so many veterans had left, or they have. And so there was a study, I think it was, I may be wrong, but it's something between 2010 and 2016. I believe the VA in Michigan did a study, and that during this period of time where they had the CDC restrictions were starting, that the black market overdose rate for pain medications for veterans rose 62%.
Hmm.
And yet, veterans who were still under prescriptive care with their physician flatlined, didn't go up at all during that period of time. So it's pushed veterans out into finding prescriptive medication wherever they could find it, not understanding too, and the VA doesn't acknowledge this yet, I hope it does soon, is that, and most physicians don't acknowledge this with their patients. It's not just VA, it's the field of chronic pain. And patients don't understand, I didn't understand, that Percocet, Vicodin, Tramadol, any of these opioid prescriptions, they end up causing hyperalgesia. And that's a condition that when you've been on pain medication for a certain period of time, it stops working and it incites pain, neuralgia. So you end up in more pain the longer you're on pain medications than not. And so you start taking more and more pain medications to take care of the pain that you don't realize that the pain medication is causing.
Hmm.
As I know it's a long-winded answer to you, but so 2018 founded Veterans in Pain. It's veteransinpain.org, org, because we're a nonprofit. And we facilitate regenerative, alternative, interventional procedures for veterans suffering from chronic pain. So procedures that are regenerative in nature, that are within FDA compliance, are what we facilitate. And we've had well over 400 veterans come through and apply to our program so far.
Now, you touched on a point that I've been trying to use as a talking point for the PACT Act, and that was pain medication, where
Yeah.
a lot of veterans who were being denied benefits because of their toxic exposures were actually looking for illegal drugs and alcohol to help kill the pain that their illnesses were causing, which then is
Mhm.
leading to suicide. Now, when veterans come to you for help, are you saying that maybe some of them are, this is like their last ditch effort
Oh,
to—
always, always.
Mhm,
And it was for me. There's something about this field. It's an well, people say it's an emerging field. But this field has been around for a long time.
mhm,
It's not that new. It's just becoming more mainstream. And but just like myself, it took me watching somebody else go through it first, because God forbid. And in reality, these procedures are the most conservative measure you could go through, or you could try. When you go to orthopedics, they're like, we have to try all these conservative measures first, and they end up doing rhizotomies and burning your nerves out and doing these injectables and steroid injections, which, by the way, each steroid injection degrades the quality of the tissue in the bone by 10%
right.
in that area. And it's only a temporary cause. And then when you talk about the other band-aids, alcohol or those types of things, when you're eating sugars, when you're eating or drinking anything that turns into sugar, alcohol turns into sugar, because certain carbohydrates turn into sugar in your system.
Mhm,
Sugar exacerbates inflammation within the body. So if you're able to go on an anti-inflammatory diet, and if you go to veteransinpain.org, we have a directives page on there,
mhm,
and it has some guidelines as to uh, sorry, adjunct measures for going through regenerative procedures that can help, but also the importance of an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And so when I finally adopted that, what does that mean? Well, it means cutting out certain sugars, cutting out carbohydrates, cutting out alcohol. everything in moderation. You can have something every once in a while. But one thing I noticed is that if I had a sip of whiskey afterwards, my spine would start burning within 30 seconds. Something that when you're at a concert and there's all this loud noise going on all the time,
Yep.
you don't really notice when somebody screams in your ear. And, but when you're in a quiet room, it's pretty darn loud.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's like when I wear my hearing aids. It's yeah. It amplifies
Yeah.
everything. So
So
Yeah,
you're on this this path to help, and we've all been given like a drug cocktail from the some of us have had more pills than others, and it really just depends on but do you see, after they receive treatment, do you see a rapid reduction in pills that they're taking because you're actually affecting the problem areas that they're having them be more dependent on some of these pills, even after that they get treatment for?
Oh, I can't tell you how many veterans have come to us and they were told they need a knee replacement. And within, then they have these PRP injections, platelet-rich plasma. That's where they extract your own blood. It's just like you're drawing blood, put it through a centrifuge, extract from that what's called a Buffy coat. It's yellow golden serum that comes from your blood, and it has hyaluronic acids in it, growth factors and proteins, and they cause a regenerative reaction. They cause ironically, it causes an inflammatory response within the joint, which then the body naturally reacts with regeneration of that tissue and that area. But once you get through that initial inflammatory response, which means it's working, by the way, and they usually get to about 6 weeks out, a few months out. The reduction in pain medication is phenomenal. If not completely off of it for a majority. We can't ever promise anything. We never promise anything. If anybody promises you anything, I want you to run for the hills. But when it works, it's mind blowing. The power of the body's ability to regenerate itself when incited by the proper properties. And so I have a veteran. We have a veteran out of the East Coast. I'll remember him always. He was one of our very first veterans, and his name was Dennis. And he was told that he needed bilateral knee replacements. And by the time he was in good part of his recovery, he's in construction, and he was doing 25 flights of stairs a day. So yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. And then for spine, there's bone marrow aspirate concentrate. So what is that? It's a little more advanced of a procedure. You usually do it you do it in an OR setting for sterility. You're not going under or don't have anesthesia even. And they extract with a tiny needle bone marrow from your iliac crest of your hip. And then with that is reintroduced into your spine or your joint, but mostly the spine for that. That is more of a stem cell based procedure. And and that's usually for spine. But when you're looking at these procedures too, the insurance doesn't cover them. That's why they're so unaccessible. So we make these accessible. So a spine procedure BMAC can start at $9,000 to $11,000 and is not covered by insurance. One joint is $4,000 to $7,000, depending. And so for even that's what keeps people away from it mostly, is because of the vast cost, and insurance not covering it. But what people don't know, so the way that we work is our physicians throughout the country, we have a network, they provide their services free of charge. Okay. And so what's left are hard costs. And so if we don't have the funding, then so donations are so important to keep us going. If we don't
Mhm.
have the funding, those costs fall upon the veteran. And then they have to fund the hard costs. It's still an 80 to 90% discount, which is phenomenal. But
Mhm.
even that can be expensive. So if they don't have the funding, then we help the veteran find funding through, the Semper Fi Fund. Semper Fi Fund's amazing. I don't know if everybody knows about that, but they don't just treat Marines. They find funding if you have 100% disability rating. That's really the qualification. They don't discriminate as to armed forces. So Burn Pits 360, I cannot applaud this organization enough. And like you said, it's led by Rosie and Leroy Torres, and they live in
Mhm.
Texas. And they've funded our veteran procedures before, and they've helped us enormously with connecting us with different organizations, to make our procedures possible as well.
Now, before we go with another question here, and I'll let Kevin get the next question in, I just want to let our viewers know the chat line is open. As Michaela may have seen, a few people have already commented about you here, and I did post
Oh,
them up. Yep, here I'll post them again for you.
great.
There's Gina Adams,
Oh, Gina, hi.
and then Alan here.
Oh my God. Oh, Alan, hi, buddy. Oh, I know Alan. Alan Artcliffe. He's wonderful. Oh
All right.
gosh.
So, viewers, go ahead, ask away in the chat, and we'll get them to Michaela. And all right, Kevin, back to you.
All right. So these procedures, are you trying to set with somewhere as close in proximity to them? I mean, or are there some places that they just have to? This is the um, this is the subject matter expert. So you might have to fly from New York to L.A. or somewhere like that. Within the network, do you try to link them up with people in close proximity?
Yeah, that's one of the most important aspects of the continued expansion of our physician network, is so that we have the quality of care always comes first. We're not just going to accept a physician. They need to be within compliance. That's huge. We will not accept physicians that aren't operating within FDA compliance. And so now we have physicians all over the country, but it's still never enough, right? Especially when you're suffering from chronic pain. And then when we do travel, another shout out to two other amazing organizations. Unless if you know about them, they provide. One of them provides pro bono commercial air, and that's Luke's Wings. So lukeswings.org. They're phenomenal, and so people donate their points, their flight points to the organization, and primarily their mission statement is to provide airfare for those visiting loved ones at the VA, or going home from the hospital to and from. So they've been very kind to us and our mission by accepting our veterans, because we're outside of that. But we're so grateful. And then the other organization that has provided so many flights for us, I've literally lost count, is Veterans Airlift Command. So that's veteransairlift.org, and they are private pilots. So these amazing pilots are donating their time, their skills, their airplane, their gasoline. So we've been very fortunate in that the travel has been more accessible too for our veterans going, if they need to go to a different state or what have you, which we do quite often.
Yes, I heard about Veterans Airlift actually through the VA because they're trying to get me on the lung transplant list, and in
Yeah. Oh,
and in
yeah.
my region, it's the VA transplant center is in Minnesota. So, and I'm in Cleveland, so they said this organization would fly my family back and forth so they could visit with me, because they said I'd probably be up once I do get on the list, I'll be up there at least 6 months after the operation. So they said they would fly
Oh,
my family back and forth. So yes, folks, that's another organization we need to support. And
yeah.
now,
Yeah, Jen Salvati is runs that puppy, and, yeah, she's got a heart of gold, that's for sure.
mhm. And I'm glad, and thank you for mentioning Burn Pits 360, because Kevin and I have a big, huge spot in our heart for that organization. So thank you
Yeah.
for that. And I know Rosie and Leroy's definitely going to thank you later here. And when
Uh,
a veteran comes to you, is it normally the veteran that comes to you, or is it their family or their doctor that reaches out to you
everyone
first?
Well, you nailed it on all 3. So, the tradition what we do, like, usual and customary is if you go to veteransinpain.org, there's steps 1 through 3, that application process. So, and it's important. The questions that we ask are important. Nothing is on there just to be on there. It really helps us absorb your case, who you are, where you've been, what your story is, before steps 1 and 2. Well, here we go. Okay. Step 1 is the application. It'll kick you to our waiver. You're going to sign the waiver. And then step 3 is you schedule a Zoom. And so every veteran, I conduct a 45-minute to 1 hour Zoom with every veteran that comes to the program. And that's the thing that's really missing is time. They don't get the time with their primary care providers often, and
Mhm,
or somebody who can really wrap their brain around their case in a way that's comprehensive in nature, but it's human. It's human.
mhm,
you know and also to declare, I'm not a doctor, I don't pretend to be one. I'm completing my certification in genomics from Stanford University. I'm very excited about that. I'm doing this a long time. I've been through it. I get it. So I think by the time they have this conversation with just a person that's been where they've been, that's where we often both end up in tears, just because it never gets old. Oh, I don't have to explain this to somebody. Oh my God, they get it already. So now we can get on and get into the nitty gritty of kind of figuring out, is it just in the spine? You sciatica running down your leg. You got now you have a bum knee. Well, why? Well, often it's the gait that's affected by the spinal injury that
mhm,
causes the degradation in the knee, and just kind of also really explaining what chronic pain is and isn't to veterans, to each veteran. And they realize they're not crazy. No, this is so real. And it's on with chronic pain, it can become systemic. It can travel from joint to joint, not just because of mechanics, but on a cellular level. Certain enzymes and proteins are released that then cause the breakdown of your inhibitors. So pain inhibitors. So when you bounce a ball, the
mhm.
ball's bouncing and eventually it'll stop. Well, there's an inhibitor called gravity. And so our bodies have a very similar mechanism. So when we have pain signals and pain signaling, then they eventually stop because we have these inhibitors. Well, chronic pain as a disease is the breakdown of those inhibitors working properly.
Yes.
So,
Mhm,
yeah. So, so many veterans are turned away. They're drug seekers. It's all in their head, or what have you. And it's the furthest thing from the truth. There's just nobody explains it that way. And especially, I don't want to just pass over toxic exposure. With toxic exposure, that's one of the greatest chronic pain diseases that exists today. And also because toxins could bypass the blood-brain barrier, and you end up with these systemic conditions where you don't realize that your skin is the largest organ in your body. So it's not just breathing in these from the toxins from the burn pit or from the power plant next to them, or the waste barrel that they have to burn in man at night. That's right there in their in their encampment.
Mm-hmm.
They are breathing in the toxins. The toxins are bypassing the blood-brain barrier. They're causing issues within the brain, scar tissue buildup within the brain, that because it affects the central part of the brain, it's usually where it goes, that affects involuntary functions within the body. So they go home with heart palpitations or heart arrhythmias and resting heart rates of 250 to 300. And so they get a referral to see a cardiologist, and they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with your heart. No, because it is in your head, it's in your brain. It's this damage that's caused. And another thing you don't talk about is high impact sound, high impact explosions, noises. They cause an autoimmune response within the brain. So you can end up with inflammation within the brain, scar tissue buildup within the brain, lesions on the brain caused by explosions. And they did a study. Dr. Sean Berman out of Beverly Hills did a study. And he was like, well, what's the one common denominator? We have these veterans with PTSD, but half of them, and it shows up clinically on a brain scan, and it's lit up in the same place, but half of them were never deployed. Well, the one common denominator that they had was they all went through boot camp. And you end up being exposed to endless, these sound wave induced concussions within the brain. And so what he did was he took rats and exposed the rats, and this is on our YouTube channel too. So if you go to our blog page on our site, our YouTube channel is at the top. You can find Sean Berman's he explains everything in there. And he exposed rats to these highly concussive randomized sounds over time. And then he scanned their brains, and they lit up in the same place as the veterans' brains. Then he did a systemic mesenchymal stem cell treatment on the rats as well as the veterans. Within 6 weeks, the areas of the brain that were all lit up dissipated, and their symptoms of PTSD, the fight or flight, all those things went away. So by about 80% or something like that, he talked about. So, stem cells it's a bad word, right? You're not supposed to call it stem cells. It's regenerative medicine, but it's also like the nuclear bomb of anti-inflammatory ultimately as well. So again, soft tissue related, whether it's in the brain, whether it's in the joint, the spine, the body, systemic inflammation. If you don't address chronic pain systemically, or in regards to the inflammatory aspect it is, then you're not treating it therapeutically.
Now, stem cell, that's become like taboo here in this country for one reason or another. Now, you said you were able to do yours in California?
Well, no, it was in Scottsdale at the time.
Oh, Arizona. Okay.
But you can no longer obtain these in the country. No, you have to go out of the country. There are amazing clinics down in Panama. You go out of the country, and they're great clinics. They're doing amazing work. It's still fiscally out of reach for so many. It's 25 to 35,000 and the travel and what have you. But they're comprehensive programs. They're approaching it. The ones that I know of, they're approaching it properly. And a lot of the funding organizations are now, starting to realize for veterans, the importance of these types of procedures for vets. So, but our long-term goal, is really for us not to have to be here. And I think that's the goal of
Right.
most nonprofits, right? Like if you want to stay
Mhm.
around forever, it means you're not doing your job right. And so our long-term goal is for a legislative initiative for government funding or vouchers for these regenerative interventional solutions for veterans suffering from chronic pain. Sharon Jackson out of Alaska, she served in the House of Representatives for Alaska, and she's now our legislative liaison. And she's our angel trying to get this all move forward. And I have to give another major shout out. I feel like I need to get a big whoop whoop shout
Right.
out.
There we go.
Is to Dr. Jana Vilen, Vilen, at the VA in Montana. I believe they're in Helena, Montana. She and her husband both basically had the pain department there, and they are for the first time creating what we have been advocating for, which is a multidisciplinary chronic pain program within their VA, and actually creating a facility for these. And what does that mean? Well, number one, it incorporates pain psychology is what you need. So it's been proven too that past traumas can exacerbate breakthrough pain levels. And unless you are processing these and also discussing your pain, you're missing a huge component of pain management, soft tissue therapy, massage therapy, again, soft tissue related, being able to really, drain the body and get the body's tissues, get the blood flowing. The more that you can get the blood flowing within the tissues in the body, the greater oxygen that you get in that area. And oxygen has healing powers. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, Healing Arizona Veterans, another amazing organization. They provide free pro bono hyperbaric therapy out of Tucson for veterans suffering from TBI. Well, the great side effect of that is it's massive anti-inflammatory powers for systemic chronic pain as well. And oxygen helps feed the healthy cells and starves the unhealthy cells. So it's a therapeutic program. And neurobiofeedback. When you don't want to ignore the power of the mind, is not that chronic pain is in your head. It means that the brain signaling is chronic pain. It's how you experience pain, is by your brain pain signaling. And so unless you're addressing that, that's a huge component of it. So we also have a ketamine division that's led by Dr. Stephen Reichbach out of Sarasota, Florida. And so IV intensive ketamine therapy, that is it's the one way where it's usually 5 days long, start on Monday and on Friday. Again, these are all pro bono. The ketamine treatments are all pro bono for our vets, which is phenomenal too. And so you start on Monday with a relatively light dose, and it's a few hours long, and you have a physician there with you conducting these treatments the whole time. It's IV. And by Friday, you're at the optimal dose. And what it does is it resets the brain back to its most primal state by disconnecting a lot of the, I would say, voluntary signaling. Involuntary signaling is still going, you're fine. Nothing's going to happen to you. It's FDA approved, you're good. But it's very powerful. So by rebooting the brain, you're essentially more in your consciousness for this period of time, but it stops the madness of that signaling that has now gone haywire, whether no matter what type of chronic pain condition it is, it has to do with brain signaling. So it's rebooting it back to its most primal state, your body. And by the time you're done, I went through this the reason why I know what a proper pain program is because of Dr. Joshua Prager out of Santa Monica. He was my doctor. He saved my life. And he's the one that his chronic pain program is 8 weeks long. The first 2 weeks are ketamine, intensive IV ketamine treatments. And then after that, it's from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You'll have pain psychology, and then you'll go to neurobiofeedback. And then at the end of the day, you'll take yourself over to massage therapy. Next day is physical therapy. It starts with, and it rotates like that for another 6 weeks. Well, that is the optimal chronic pain program. And then the other procedure that we offer is through Stella, the Stella clinics. And so they are a national network of 40 facilities that provide stellate ganglion blocks. What is that? We call it an SGB. And if you Google 60 Minutes, Dr. David Harshfield, Sean Mulvaney, and SGB, you'll see a whole segment that they did on this. And it's an injection into the stellate ganglion nerve, and it short circuits the signaling. It's really wonderful. It's a wonderful. It's right up there with ketamine treatment. Sometimes you'll do both. I mean, can you imagine if you do hyperbaric therapy, if you have access to, regenerative medicine is put over here for a second, but hyperbaric therapy alone, SGBs alone, ketamine therapy alone. I mean, imagine you put them all together into a program. You can have amazing results.
Happen.
Now, go ahead, Kevin.
So what happens when you have a symptoms? I know we've talked about the knees. I know we've talked about the spine. I know we've talked about the thing that really interests me is, of course, the rucksack neck that you off the side before getting veterans treated with that brace and the chiro. But I mean, what if somebody
The Cerviguard.
came to you? Yes, the Cerviguard.
Do you mean the Cerviguard? Yes.
Somebody came to you and said, I've got neck issues, I've got toxic exposure, I've got knee issues, ankles, joints. I'm up with first. Is it whatever hurt you the most at this time, whatever the present issue is, or do you think to treat all those symptoms and all those issues all at once? How does that work?
If you have, if you come in and you have the cacophony of errors, is what I call them, is you have toxic exposure, which results in systemic joint pain and festering wounds that won't heal, often cancer. But anything that has to do with, that's one of the first questions I ask for a lot of our veterans. If I see it anywhere on the application too, is really get into, were you exposed to burn pits? If people don't know what burn pits are, they can be anywhere from, a trash can in the middle of encampment where you burn waste and trash and anything, to acres and acres of land that is used as an incineration pit. Well, what goes in there? What does that mean? Well, that can mean anything from burning and incinerating weaponry, ammo, body parts, rabid dogs, fuel, jet fuel, these types of things. And then you're assigned to man these pits without a mask, without anything, and not being told or given a heads up. So anyway, that's what burn pits are, and that's why I love Burn Pits 360 and all of the legislative activity that they've had going on lately with the PACT Act and everything. So that's to help veterans suffering from that. If you come to us, and that's number one, the first thing that I will suggest and discuss with them is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. What does that mean? Well, when you're looking for for therapeutic, right? Therapeutic hyperbaric oxygen therapy, you want to look for a facility that has a chamber with an ATA, atmospheric pressure of 2.0 at least. And now we're talking about getting getting the resolution or healing in a more efficient, timely manner. You can have a lower ATA, like the soft shell units you can get for your house. It just takes longer, to be able to get the results that you want. But an ATA of 2.0, these chambers usually can seat 5 to 6 people when they're in a commercial facility. Just like Healing Arizona Veterans, they have a big chamber, and I think it sits 5 to 6 people. And then you want to do about 2 dives a day. A lot of our vets will go in the morning. They'll have a dive where they sit in the chamber for a certain period of time, and then they'll have lunch, and then they'll go back in for the afternoon. It becomes a full-time job. Two dives a day, 5 days a week, and on Saturday or Sunday, it's good to do 1 dive on the weekend for 60 to 90 days. Full-time job, but can have a massive impact on toxic exposure. And number one, as a detox factor. And what I like about Healing Arizona Veterans is that they don't just put you in a chamber. They do diagnostics, they do toxin testing, they do brain scans. You can literally see with their specific type of brain scan. Again, our YouTube channel, you can find it on the top of our blog page, and you can go in there and look for the Hyperbaric HBOT interview for our podcast that we did with Dr. Carol Henricks. And she's the head of North Star Neurology at Launched Healing Arizona Veterans. And she explains everything. So starting with hyperbaric oxygen therapy can be huge for anybody suffering from toxic exposure. And also, we just put a blog up that's about in addressing inflammatory conditions. Well, also a really important component of that is starting out. Actually, I have the list here of you want to cleanse the system yourself as well. And so Mac Brazina runs the Human Builder, and that's on Instagram. You can look her up, Mackie Brazina, Brazina. And so she helped to guide us in nutrition. And so in order to cleanse, what her prescription for this is bromelain, taking 1 in the evening. Again, talk to your doctor. I don't want to get in trouble, just saying.
Yes.
Bromelain, lymphotonic, Restore. It's something you can drink that once every meal for the first week, and then once a day. Milk Thistle is a liver cleanser. If you're not cleaning out your liver, then what are you doing? That's the trash can for our body. You imagine if you never took out the trash, what your house would smell like. Well, that's our lymph system, our liver. Those are the trash cans for the body. So if you've been exposed to toxins for how long, you can only imagine what's built up in your system. And organic, I think it's MCI or MCI is another liver. What is that? What is that? I don't remember what that is. You have to add it to your meal. But so you start with that. And so you have to be also, you have to be very proactive when you're going to address chronic pain properly. And it means making choices like this,
Now, when a veteran comes in, well, first, because you brought up what's all in burn pits and everything, one of our speaking points is, too, with burn pits is, if anybody's ever watched Breaking Bad, the same chemicals that they use to make meth are in these burn pits. You got your acetones, you got your paint, you got your paint thinner, you got all these expired cold medicines from the hospital being thrown in there. And also, the VA used to say that there was no scientific proof that breathing any of this, the smoke from these burn pits, was dangerous, but yet they have a program that'll tell you that smoking a cigarette will kill you. So they were contradicting themselves right there.
Right.
And so now the point that I'm getting to is, when us that were exposed to these burn pits go to the VA and we tell them we're in pain and they put us on all these pain meds. When a veteran comes to your organization and they have this whole concoct, all these different types of pain meds that they're on, does a doctor go through all those medications with the veteran before they actually start treatment through your program?
Yeah, well, if I can preface by saying, and this is an anomaly I never could have predicted, I would say 80%. You want to talk about last resort, right?
Hmm.
We're the last resort. 80, I would say 80%, if not more, of the vets that come to us are beyond pain medication. They're beyond it. They've done that. It didn't work. Not working anymore. Those that are still on pain medication, well, this will help too. So, like once I complete the Zoom, right, the
Hmm.
step 3 for entry to our program, I write up a summary of the veteran's case, and I send the application and all the information that I have to one of our physicians that I feel is a good fit, and then the physician will respond like, "Yep, Mick, this looks like a good case. I can take this case right now," or "No, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now," and then we move on. And then once the physician accepts the veteran, um, uh, that veteran is accepted as a patient of theirs. So we remove ourselves medically at that point. And the physician goes through history. The physician, just like they're a normal a patient. And so, like, we try not to collect medical records, those types of things, because we want that relationship to be as streamlined as possible. I can't tell a veteran ultimately whether or not they're going to be approved for a procedure. We
Hmm.
facilitate consultations with the potential for care at accessible care, fiscally accessible care is what we do. Our physicians are the ones that approve or deny based on their findings. And so, prescription background history is just a part of what they do.
So, how do we? Tim's going to put this up on there because we're running out of time. Tim's going to put up some contact information. If you were to say after this, if people contact you, how do we get a hold of you? What would you say? And also, what are some things that veterans can have before they come dated MRIs or updated screenings or something like that you for them to help sign up for your Zoom calls and your organization? How does that work?
Yeah, really important. Well, you can go to our web, go to veteransinpain.org, fill out step 1, step 2, schedule your Zoom, which is step 3. It'll take you right to the links. It's pretty much a no-brainer. And immediately start working on obtaining your MRIs. We cannot match you until current, which means within the past year, MRIs are done of the areas of concern. Now, obtaining these through the VA can be a little tricky. So if you go to our website, you'll see a link for MRI 411. Back to the 411 days, but MRI information. So MRI 411, and it breaks it down, the tricks to obtaining, or logistics, I should say, what kind of tricks, because you don't know about them first, obtaining MRIs through the VA, make it more streamlined for you. And anybody can go to our website and go to the contact page, and everything comes directly to me here. Those emails come to me. Our team VIP at veteransinpain.org is on the screen. So that's the same email that would go to. And also I also want to really thank our team. Kane McQuinley is our corporate relations officer. Dr. David Shulkin has been a wonderful advocate for veterans, and he has a book out that's amazing, by the way. Dr. Ashim Gupta is our chief science officer. We can't do any of this without them on board, and they're the unsung heroes, really, of everything we're doing.
Unsung hero there too, as well, Micaela, with all that you've done and all that you continue to do for the Thank You for coming on the show, and I'll let Tim wrap up. But thank you so much for what you've done yourself, with my family, and all the veterans that you've impacted nationwide. But shout out in that respect, because I think you're amazing, an amazing person who continues, and a great human being that's taking care of other human beings, because that's what we need in this world, is other and help one another out. So thank you so much for all you do.
That's right.
Kevin,
Everything
Tim,
that you do.
Thank you for everything you're doing to offer this platform for awareness building of solutions, which may not be at the forefront. There's a lot of internet to dig through, to find solutions. And thank you so much for all you do and for having us on.
Well, one of the things that Kevin and I noticed when we were advocating for the PACT Act is veterans are not getting the information that they need. So that's one of the reasons why we developed this podcast, is to get all that information of all these different nonprofits just like yours, the VSOs, legislation. We're here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have a gentleman on who's with the VFW pushing for legislation in the state of Ohio for Ohio veterans. So this is information that we feel that veterans are not getting, but they need. So that's why we have people like you come on our show, so you can explain what your organization does. And since your organization did mention that sometimes veterans come to you as their last resort, we also want them to know that the VA recently changed the Veteran Crisis Line phone number. It's no longer a 1-800, it's now 988. This is information that I just found out today, because I was at the VA, that fellow veterans didn't know. They still did not know that this number had changed. So I want to thank you for coming on. And like I said at the beginning, you are one badass woman, and I am so thankful for your family, for all that you have done for veterans. And hey, brothers and sisters out there, if you are physically hurting, this is the organization to go to. Go to their website, start process 1 and 2. They'll get you to process 3 or step 3. And because, hey, if you're physically hurting, you definitely need more than what the VA is offering. And this is one of the solutions. This can also probably help with your PTSD too, if you have PTSD. And I'm sure this program would definitely help with that as well. We are still looking for veterans to let us know how they deal with their PTSD. Is it through art? Is it through physical training? Is it through counseling? Because what works for you might not work for another veteran, or what they're doing might not be working for them. So your process might help them out. So let's all get together. We got to stick together.
Listen, I want to add one more thing. It's so important. I can't not add this on. So Tri-West is now providing the funding for PRP, platelet-rich plasma. Right? Nobody knows about this. Nobody's sharing it. The issue is doctors at the VAs, the primary care physicians, don't know what it is. Or they're not trained properly how to do it, but it is covered. If you go to your primary care physician, say, listen, I know PRP is covered by Tri-West anyway. So Dr. Jana Valin out of the VA in Montana is performing these in their VA. So, just know the hope is there. We're getting somewhere. We're working on it. You know, the state of Alaska has offered us their VAs with our physicians to do any of our procedures in their communities, on their reservations. So, you know, people are waking up, and there is hope. And just know, you know, takes a village. So everybody
Yes.
keep talking about it, you know. We'll get there.
And
It does.
Just like Kevin here in the state of Michigan, pushed for legislation for HBOT up in that state, and you actually got it passed, didn't you, Kevin?
There's a resolution currently for I have approved it, but we want more. There's 15 states that have proven legislation treatment through the states. We're not waiting on people because we know the healing it does for people. But I do want to say that it takes these resources out there because not a lot of vets know what's statewide, but nationwide, and the opportunities that they may have that some of us have had, like myself. And we're actually having Dr. Carol come on the show towards the end of the month. Dr. For folks out there, please like us on Facebook, follow, watch our YouTube channels. This will be on YouTube and Spotify and podcast, or come check us out. This information is life-saving and life-changing. Of life or quality of life is huge for those vets that are in chronic pain, and just to know somebody cares, and like this woman here does, she cares about all of her vets.
That's right.
She's an amazing woman, and we're so honored to have you here today. And thank you so much, Micaela, coming on and spending time with us today.
You are such a gift. You're such a gift, you guys. Don't forget about treatnow.org. Sorry, we could be here forever, Kevin. I'm so sorry.
No, we can go over. That's fine.
Treatnow.org is it's another great organization. And so he has curated a network of and a list of veteran-friendly hyperbaric facilities around the country. So it means they're discounted, or some are pro bono, but treatnow.org is phenomenal too.
Yes, I still have to fill out my application. You got to keep reminding me, Kevin. It was an absolute honor for us to have you on the show today. We do appreciate you. We appreciate your entire family for all you've done for us. If you could, after we go off the air, if you could stay on for a moment or two with us. And hey, brothers and sisters, we're going to be on this episode will be on YouTube in about an hour. We will be on Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, Amazon, Apple.
Good God.
all within the next few hours. One thing we need from you out there, folks, if you can please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also like the episode so we can get more what's the word I'm looking for here? We need more viewers. So in order to do that, we need you to subscribe and like the videos as well. Also, when you're on Pandora and Spotify and all that too, just go ahead and like the video, and we get instant feedback from our folks from those outlets as well. And Micaela, I'm going to say it one more time. You are one badass woman. Kevin, why is it the women that are the badasses? Rosie for 13 years, the fight she went through. Now Micaela.
It's a secret.
And Casey from our show last week. It's the women. It's the women that are trying to take care of us veterans, and are doing one hell of a job at it. So I appreciate you very, very much. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us today. And next week, Kevin, if you want to go ahead and explain what next week's episode is going to be about.
Next week, we're having Taco, we call him. He's from Oscar Mike, which is a great organization with disabilities find activity with one another. They got a camp in Illinois, and they also have a camp in Colorado. Go out and do activities. Organization. I don't want to give too much away, but it's Oscar Mike. So look them up if you have one of their key members of the organizations there about their talk about what they're doing for vets.
All right, and one last thing here. Let me find it. If you know somebody who is pushing for legislation for veterans in your state, we'll even include Guam and Puerto Rico in there, because we definitely know they should be states. At least I feel that way. And they definitely have large veterans communities, and they seem to do a very good job of taking care of veterans there. If you know of anybody in your state that's pushing legislation, have them get a hold of us. We'll bring them on, so veterans in your state will learn what's going on. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.